For this video, I want to talk about the whole anti-foreigner whatever propaganda stuff going on right now in Japan. And I first want to start off by saying, I told you guys so. But secondly, I want to more importantly have a more serious discussion about the hypocrisy, irony, and Japan calling themselves upset about foreigners committing crimes, breaking rules, etc., being a nuisance, annoying, etc. to locals. And when I say locals, I know that white foreigners in particular like to separate themselves, but as I said before, when you don't look Japanese, aka you do not look Asian, you are going to be put into the foreigner, aka tourist category. Nobody knows or cares that you live here. The best example that I can give for you, which I'll make a separate video on this topic actually, is think about how things were with the coronavirus in the US in particular. I was not here, so I'm just speaking on what I've seen on the news, what I've heard, etc. Nobody cared whether you were Japanese, whether you were Korean, whatever else. You're East Asian looking, so therefore you're Chinese, okay? And before you get offended by that, I would argue the Japanese do the exact same thing. You dress a certain way, you look a certain way, the assumption is you're an American. So, and then look at it this way. It's the same idea with tourist versus foreign resident. Nobody really gives a shit. Okay, so with that said, in fact, I'd also argue that a lot of Japanese people are very ignorant of the idea of foreign resident. I think that most people have the idea that you're a tourist even if you're there as a teacher. Like, their brains can't really comprehend that you're living here long term or permanently, or at some point you may have been living here just as long, if not for the same amount of time, that you've been living in your respective home country. For example, I have spent, 25% of my life was spent in Japan. That's crazy. Thus far, I should say. So with that said, most Japanese people cannot comprehend that. They still ask you silly, stupid questions where it's like, been here for 10 years. I hope I know how to do these things. I hope that I'm comfortable with these things at this point. Just silly, I'm not even talking about language questions. That's somewhat understandable. I mean asking questions like, do you use chopsticks, or you can eat raw fish, you're okay with Japanese tea. It's all I have to choose from is 3 different types of tea. Yeah, I actually kind of am. So, but anyway, that's another story. I'm just explaining how there's no concept of you have now assimilated. For example, people love asking me, what do I eat? If I can make Japanese food. And I get it. There's always somebody who doesn't. But it's if you've been living here for the length of time that I have, and these are people that know that I've been here for this long, their brains just cannot separate you from a tourist. So they still ask you silly, touristy questions. They still love to explain things to you, mansplain, but in Japanese terms, things that you already know. And I don't mind. I listen to it, but I just find it kind of funny. It's this should probably offend and or annoy me, but it's just whatever at this point. Anyway, that's not the purpose of this video. What I want to talk about is, how can you get mad at people for not following rules when you don't care to explain them? And we've kind of gone over this before, but it just really tickles me. It's you want people to magically be able to read your mind, read the room, if you will, and know what all of these 5 million different rules are for your country, which they're probably only going to spend somewhere between a week, a month, no more than a few years at. And it's funny because everything that people accuse Americans of, the Japanese are. They want the entire world to revolve around them. You want people to learn your language, learn your culture, learn all of your fucking rules, just to vacation there, just to do a study abroad there. And then it's really funny because if people expect the same thing in the US, you get called a bigot, you're a hater, you're a weirdo, you're self-centered. It's all these different names and labels that you get. But when the Japanese do, it's this is Japan. It's also funny too because people normally use that term in reverse, and this is America, meaning in a racial whatever type way, but people use that as a end all argument. No matter what you say, this is Japan. Somebody armed me, this is Japan. Hey, that guy was mean, this is Japan. It's everything just gets excused if you just say this is Japan. Which, granted, I guess they have no interest in changing anything, so maybe I guess you might as well excuse it. But this is the thing that tickles me. They want people that are educated to migrate to their country. They want people that are foreign to teach their children English and various other skills. They also want to look like you. And then in addition to that, they want to consume and enjoy your media. They are desperate for your dollars. And for the people that, oh, the economy doesn't meet you, you should have saw things were during the pandemic. Places immediately started closing down, and the ones that remained open, I can tell you from personal experience. I was a foreign resident, but I was treated like a tourist. Everywhere that I went, immediately, anybody, the little shops and stalls, they would try to hound you down, trying to get you to buy stuff. And it's like, do you not realize that I'm still here during the pandemic because I am not a tourist. I've been living here for a long time. Thus, yes, I appreciate the fact that you are trying to, I can't say I appreciate it. I mean, thanks, but no thanks. That you're trying to get me to go into your little shitty ass stall or overpriced whatever souvenir place, but I kind of live here and I don't really need souvenirs. Which I won't lie, sometimes I do enjoy the little souvenir stores, but you know what I'm trying to say. Then it's really funny how everybody's mad at the fact that there's so many tourists at the other, and it's like, they only exist because you all have been welcoming them. Get mad at your government. You all create programs, make TV shows. Your own people, not just foreigners, have created social media accounts, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube channels, trying to invite foreigners to come to Japan. Then when they come there, then you all get mad, not at the people that invited them, but you get mad at the foreigner themselves. And it's very interesting. Nobody is mad at these Japanese shops and stores that cater to foreigners. They're mad at you as the foreigner for coming here to even be able to go and shop and eat at these places. Very interesting. It's like all of this displaced anger. Not to mention, this is the part that tickled me the most. This whole Japan first thing that these government officials that are running for office, whatever, are trying to do. And it's like, can Japan think for themselves? Like, y'all really are trying to be like America's little sister, and it's just funny to me. So basically, you all are trying to copy off of Trump in a way that makes no sense for your country. You're worried about things that don't really matter. For example, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that nothing needs to have a second look and that nothing needs to be changed, amended, whatever, with policies that are made to benefit foreigners. Do not get me wrong. But what I find interesting is these should not be things worth voting for somebody for. And you might argue, tell that to the US, but hear me out. The US's issues with immigration are not anywhere near what the problems are in Japan. Japan does not have millions of illegal people trying to enter their country in any given year, and definitely not hundreds of thousands on any given day. In addition to that, most people do not dream of living in Japan unless you're some poor from another Southeast Asian country, etc. Sorry, keeping it real. Or you're a weeb from a rich country. Most people do not think, let's run away to a country that has a worthless currency, like in a slave-like work life and shitty small housing, and sorry, like this is just reality. Also, I'm gonna dash your little healthcare dreams. Japanese healthcare sucks in comparison to the US. Don't get me wrong, the doctors and nurses are a million times nicer and they actually fucking do their job. But the problem is, they're not good at diagnosing stuff. They're somewhat cold, and they have a very direct mindset of, this is what you have, this is how we're gonna treat it, instead of, let me take this on a case-by-case type of basis. You practically have to go there like knowing exactly what you have. Also, I should add, they can turn you away for not having insurance, unlike how it works in the US, where essentially you have to be seen, especially in an emergency situation. They don't do the whole little swear and oath, whatever type things like how we do in the US. But it's a whole other story. Not gonna get into this for a separate video. But I'm just explaining. I find it interesting that they're trying to make it seem like, you know what, if you guys are gonna do this, we're gonna do it too. But it's also interesting because, like, is this Japan or is this the US? Or is this Europe? Like, you all can't make up your mind. I said this before. It's like, you all say, oh, this is Japan, don't change Japan. But then when Japan changes itself to be like the US, then it's crickets. And it's, oh, yeah, Japan, yeah, you should do this. America's doing it too. This is not the same thing. And I should also add, I don't fully agree with everything Trump is doing, but I also don't fully disagree with everything being done. I do think there is an issue. You cannot just have people from everywhere in the world just freely running into your country. That obviously is a danger to your country. I mean, come on, we've already dealt with 9/11. Like, that's obviously hazardous. We also have a fentanyl epidemic going on. Let's use our brains here, people. Also, we cannot be housing people when we are not even taking care of the poor that we currently have. There are already people that are U.S. residents that came here the right way. They were born into this country the right way, not through hoes getting pregnant by some random white or black guy to get a visa, get their baby citizenship. I'm talking people that were, grandfathered into the system like myself, that are, the a descendant of an African slave. Okay. Or a white person that was here from way back whenever. And we're not going to get into all of that with the specifics. My point is this. There has to be a system in which you allow people to come in. And this is going to offend people for some stupid reason, which I find really funny, because it's like, okay, if you're watching this channel, you likely like Japan, which means that you, if you're like most weebs, you support Japan. And you don't see anything wrong with Japan keeping their immigration the way that they have it, right? Because you guys always say, keep Japan Japanese, or keep Japan Japan. So why does that suddenly go out the window when it comes to the U.S.? Because by that standard, Japan is also stolen land too. In fact, this is going to really hurt your feelings. The Japanese are basically just Chinese people. They're Chinese people that ran away, raped, and killed the Ainu people and created their own little country and bred with each other, essentially. And I would argue it isn't really the same situation for Korea too, but I don't really know much about their history, so I'm not going to speak on that. I took Japanese history though. So with that said, it's just funny to me that it's like, this is not even remotely the same thing. Foreigners are the least of you all's concern. And I'm not telling them to have open borders, but I mean the dumb things that they're trying to crack down on, like housing, etc. I can assure you the problem is not rich foreigners buying you all's houses. You all are killing yourselves off. You're not buying houses, and most of them just want to rent places anyway. So, like, where are all of these, like, made-up problems coming from? Why is there this hyperfixation on trying to get angry at foreigners about nothing? Like, nobody's doing anything to you. It's just really weird to me. And then it's even dumber to me, or I guess I should expect this. They don't have enough sense to think for themselves. It's like whatever the media tells them is their problem or is going on is believed. People don't question or challenge it. And I just find that really interesting that a country that prides itself on being so smart and so independent and so unique, they don't have the ability to, and I blame them on their school system and the way that they are raised, I guess I get it, but they don't have the ability to think for themselves. It's just whatever I'm taught to think, this is what I think. There's no questioning, challenging, whatever society, the news, your mother says to you. It's just whatever everyone says I should believe, that's exactly what I believe. If they're saying that foreigners are posing a threat to my ability to live my life, to buy a house, to get a job, it's going to be believed. Even though there's literally zero evidence of that. And it's also interesting too, because it's like, this is a time when you want to be as close to foreigners as possible, when your yen is literally shit. Your population is dying off, which we're not talking about the idea of a whole bunch of foreigners coming in and mixing with the Japanese to keep the Japanese population going. I'm not even going to address that part of it. I'm just talking about keeping your society running. You are not going to have enough people to do your day-to-day stuff, like going to the restaurant or going to the convenience store or going grocery shopping. You're not going to have enough people to sustain these businesses, especially since most people are going to choose to pursue a degree or some sort of certification to get some sort of other job that will keep them out of working such jobs. Meaning that the way that you're going to get your blue collar or pink collar, low skill level jobs, whatever, is going to require foreign residents. If you're scaring everyone away, you're basically isolating yourself, and now your problem is going to literally, whatever you want to call it, become 10 times worse. Also, you're asking people to come to your country, to come to your schools, but then when they come here, even for vacation, you're making them feel unwanted and scaring them off. So it sounds cute and cool in a video to be, this big bad angry racist Japanese person. But when the moment comes and you guys realize that you're having the same situation as the pandemic and it's like, nobody wants to go to Japan anymore, then you're going to be desperately trying to do circus tricks to get Whitey to come back. And I just think it's really weird. It's like, why are you doing this to yourselves? Like, you should be grateful that you're getting all of this positive publicity. And instead of being upset about the people that are breaking rules and doing this, that, and the other, how about figure out why the rules are being broken? Is it because you're not actually teaching them these things? Because think about it. The reason why the vast majority of rules in Japan are known is not because a Japanese person has told us what to do. Think about it. Most of what you've learned about Japan has been from a foreigner like myself. Am I wrong or am I right? And not just that, there are not a lot of books on Japanese. There are not a lot of books on Japanese language. There aren't a lot of books on Japanese culture. There aren't a lot of Japanese lessons available. And so when you consider all of these different things, even when they do have lessons or books, they are very seldom going to talk about actual cultural day-to-day life aspects. It's normally stupid, silly things like be quiet on the train. But it doesn't really go much further than that. Or tipping is offensive, which is also not true. And the quiet on the train part is also, it's a mixed thing. It's technically true, and it's better to be safe than sorry to shut up. But you can talk on the train as long as you're quiet, and sometimes it does get loud, in which case, if everybody's talking, it's okay for you to talk too. So that's a whole nother story, though. And it depends on what type of train you're on. Shinkansen has completely different rules than taking a local train, and also taking a major train line, such as if you're taking the Yamanote line. That line is generally okay to talk for the most part, as long as you're quiet, not like overly loud, ratchet, whatever. And then let me also talk about this part too. This is why I was talking about how you all need to stop listening to Japanese people that tell you it's okay to do things that I told you all is not okay. And I know it's like, girl, like, you're not Japanese. Hear me out. They will tell you, oh, dress however you want to. It's okay to wear this, whatever. But then they'll turn around and protest about how foreigners are disrespectful because you all are dressing like skanks to shrines, that you all are wearing booty shorts and flip-flops, etc. So it's like, okay, this is what I'm talking about. They are literally telling you, oh, you're a foreigner. Go ahead, dress how you want to. But then when you all do it, they turn around later on and bash you for being rude and offensive, for doing the very thing they said was okay to do because you're a foreigner. The same thing goes for language. They literally made the rule of pretty much all schools across the board, if you don't live in Japan, let me explain to you, they want to have an immersive English environment. So they typically do not want you to use a lick of Japanese language when you are speaking to the children, and preferably the parents too, but it's kind of a little more okay to communicate with the parents. But when dealing with the children, you are only supposed to use English, whether it is disciplining them, teaching them, whatever. Playing with them too. And so it's like, okay, makes sense, right? But then if you ask, I remember I saw an interview on YouTube in particular. They will complain about foreigners not using Japanese when teaching them, English, and about how it's hard to learn from them. They'll also complain about foreigners not knowing how to speak Japanese despite living in Japan. And then it's like they don't take into consideration, you do realize the average foreigner that you come across has not been living in Japan for more than 3 years. Most people will leave Japan within their first 1 to 3 years because they realize it's not all cupcakes and rainbows and sunshine. And with that said, the average person that you're coming across that does not speak Japanese very well, they have every reason not to. I don't know about you, but if you're an adult and you're working a full-time job, it is extremely difficult to find the time and or the money, especially if you're being paid in Japanese yen, to learn how to speak Japanese. Especially if you happen to be a married person with children. Because basically, if you are married in a relationship, you could pretty much forget about making friends. For the most part, people only want to be friends with people that are single, whether it be they want to have the illusion that they can date you. I don't know. It's significantly harder to make friends when you are married in Japan. Also, you're not being paid much in Japanese yen, so it's hard to be able to afford Japanese language lessons. There aren't that many different schools that offer the language lessons, and individuals and schools alike charge a ton of money, which is really weird because you would think that it would cost less to learn how to speak Japanese in Japan, but I would argue it costs just as much as you pay in your home country. Specifically if you're an American. I can't speak for other people's countries. So with that said, it's like, okay, so then when people try to use Japanese with you, you resort to English, then you want them to miraculously learn how to speak it, even though they're not really given much of opportunity to do it. And granted, I get it, people have thick accents, hard to understand, etc., but it's like you have to start and learn somewhere. Just like you, when you first started learning how to speak English, you likely sucked at it. You likely had a thick accent. You might still have one. But the point is, if nobody gives you the opportunity to try to speak it, you will never become good at it. You will never be able to become fluent, etc. And again, you're creating a problem and then getting mad that the problem exists, and then you're also giving mixed signals. It's like you're dating a bitch or something like that. Like, I'm just being for real. You're being told, oh, like think about this, like somebody saying, oh, like, I'm not hungry, and then like you order food and like, oh, like, can I have some fries? Like, bitch, I asked you if you were hungry. What's the same thing with this? You're asking, hey, can I use, Japanese talk to the kids? No, don't use Japanese, only use English. And then the kids complain, oh, we should, you spoke English, you've been, and not even just kids, adults too. So it's like, okay, like, you literally made it impossible for me to ever use it. I don't get paid enough to learn it on my own time. I don't have enough time on my own time. And then the places that I would think would be great for me to practice it, I'm not allowed to use it, such as my day-to-day life at work, which, FYI, most working adults, you spend the majority of your life is spent at work. So if you're not going to speak it at work, where do you really have the opportunity to do it? And don't get me started if you're married. Oftentimes your spouse and your children are going to want to use English with you. So the list just goes on. All I want to say is this. Japan, you can't have it both ways. You cannot create a problem and then blame foreigners for the problem existing. And like I said, there's this misunderstanding of everybody that you meet is not necessarily a tourist, but keep in mind, even for the foreign residents, most of them have only been here for a few years. You will seldom meet people that have been living in Japan for 10 plus years consecutively. They may have been there 10 years over the length of their time, like, oh, I went 1 year, 1992, whatever, but most people have not been there for that long. And even then, keep in mind, moving to different cities, different experiences that you start off as a student, like, all of these different things will mold and shape your experience and make everything completely different for you. They don't seem to understand that learning a language such as Japanese is significantly harder than it is to learn English, not because of even, the fact that it's difficult to grammar. I'm not talking about all that type of stuff. I'm talking about the fact that we have no exposure to Japanese as children. And none as a young adult, unless you purposefully went out of your way to choose to have such exposure. Gen Alpha and potentially Gen Z may have had more than millennials, boomers, and Gen X did, because anime has become significantly more popular than it used to be. According to Netflix, even recently, they're claiming that 50% of users consume anime. But I feel like the, whatever isn't necessarily a causation type thing. It could be that most people that like anime tend to have a Netflix account, which would make sense because Netflix has anime. It's one of the only streaming services that consistently has lots of anime shows. So I don't necessarily mean it's 50% of the population, rather 50% of people who have Netflix accounts. And most people share their account. So if you want to argue, oh, there's over 100 million people on Netflix, yeah, but how many people actually use their account solely on their own? Most people do not. Most people are sharing their account, but that's a whole other story. So anyway, here goes my thing. And also, what qualifies as anime? So, all I want to say is this. You can't get mad at people for not knowing rules that you don't teach them. You can't get mad at people for not knowing a language that you refuse to speak to them and that you don't give them the opportunity to learn cheaply or easily. Instead of getting mad that you have tons of people here, how about recognize your problem is the same as many places in the world, including the US, the people that you hate so much. We deal with tourists too. You want to know what I find very interesting? I have never in my life had a conversation with anyone about tourists. The only conversation I've ever had with anyone is about immigration. We don't really give a shit about tourists. We see you all. You might sometimes get in the way. We might sometimes laugh at you, but we don't make whole think pieces and lives about you. I've never come across an American. I know it exists. Somebody gonna link them. I know. I have never seen an American make a YouTube, Twitter, whatever, dedicated to hating on tourists. Like, that just seems so weird. It's one thing to complain on people that are here illegally. I can support that. But the idea that your whole life is just surrounded by, or, consumed by both tourists and foreigners that are living here. Because I've never seen either. I've seen people that are racist. If the KKK is going to count, alright, then fine, that's different. But I've never, ever, ever in my life seen that. And if there is somebody out there, because I know there's someone for everything, I can assure you there are not nearly as many in comparison as there are the Japanese. And again, it's like, they talk and do all this stuff, but then they will be offended and hurt if those same things were applied to them in America or any other country that they choose to visit. Which I find very interesting. So you all love Hawaii and you have no problem with annoying the people there. But you want your land to be kept sacred and you don't want tourists anymore. Did it ever occur to you that the reason why you're also getting a flood of tourists isn't just because of the foreigners making YouTubes and TikToks, etc. and Instagram pages? It's your own people. The Japanese have realized, all of these white people are, making all these videos talking about how wonderful Japan is and the food's something the other. How about I do that? And that's exactly what they've been doing. But I have not seen a single person get mad at them for doing that. And it's funny because, once again, they're too cowardly to get mad at their government and their own people. So instead, their anger is displaced and directed at you. How dare you take a plane here? How dare you choose to work here and teach my child? It's like, huh? So it's like, if you're going to be mad at me for coming here, get mad at Tato for telling me why I should. Just saying. If you're going to get mad at me for being able to buy a house, get mad at Masahito, your greedy, whatever, real estate agent, government person that allowed this to happen in the first place. And let's also acknowledge this other little thing too, okay? Because maybe say, oh, they are trying to hear me out. Are they going to make the pricing go down? No, they are not. They're not going to. They're not going to say, we love our people so much, we want to make things affordable for you. They won't even make having children affordable for you. Okay, let's be real here. Real estate is all about money. And Japan is one of the worst places to buy real estate, especially in a place where it's worth anything, because it will get knocked down in about 10, 20 years. With that said, do you really think that because they they change the rules or whatever, they're going to stop pricing you out? No. They're going to start catering like how they've always been to the wealthy Japanese. Okay? Just because Sam, Jake, Heather, and Becky aren't going to be able to buy real estate allegedly anymore does not mean they're not going to still be trying to cater to the rich. Your problem is not the fact that foreigners have more money than you do and can afford to buy the nice mansions in Japan. Your problem is very similar to affirmative action. How they tricked Asian Americans into thinking that their problem was the black people that were benefiting from it. When the reality is, the real issue was the rich Nepo babies. They were grandfathered and basically had their tuition, not necessarily paid for, but their seat to be at these top universities was bought. Thanks to having celebrity parents. Rich parents that had a job that knew a guy who knew a friend. That was your real concern. We make up a very small percentage of those seats. But you're so hyperfixated on the few people that you believe should not be there. And you literally just fell for the trap. In fact, it was really funny because as soon as it happened, what happened immediately? There was an even lower amount of Asian students that made it into these schools. And all I can do is think, y'all asses are so fucking stupid. But anyway, that's a whole nother story. I'm just explaining, like, this is the same concept where you're allowing yourselves to be duped. You're being made to get angry at foreigners instead of angry at your government for being greedy. Because think about it, they're scamming us too. They're raising the prices on hotels. They're raising the prices on, rents for Airbnbs, all type of different things in order to make more money. This is also hurting us because we're like, hey, I'm here to go on vacation. I want to get a good deal. I'm not trying to spend more money. I know this is hard for people to understand, but y'all do realize that Americans aren't like some sort of like rich Saudi Arabian, like big happy family or some shit, right? Like most of us are not filthy rich. Compared to some poor countries, like a lot of places in Africa, I get it. I've talked to some of you all, like where I was talking about a low salary. You're like, actually, that's kind of good money, in South Africa, whatever. Okay, I get that, all right? But we're not talking about there. I'm talking about the U.S. Most of us are not filthy rich. Meaning that when we go on vacation, we've saved our whole lives to do this, okay? Or we're spending money that we don't have. We just took this month and next month's rent to take that plane to get there. But their mindset is like everybody that's coming to Japan is like some wealthy billionaire, tax them more, charge them more, whatever. And again, you can do that, but just understand, if you get too greedy, people will stop going to your country. I'm just going to be real with you. You might think that you're enjoying that. Yeah, you're saying that now. But when your population is declining and your yen is tanking, I'm pretty sure you're actually kind of benefiting from all the praise and love that your country is getting. And like I said before, if you hate tourists so much, I know this is going to sound really, really crazy, but you can leave. Like, I mean, for real, like, I'm not even talking about leaving the country. You do realize you don't have to live in a big city. Nobody's forcing you to live in Tokyo, Kyoto, Osaka. I know, really crazy, right? Okinawa, you don't have to be there. Wow. Just like in America. I won't lie, the closest that I get to seeing people act really bitchy, which I will chalk it up to the fact that it's a lot of Asians there. I'm just keeping it real. Japanese. I'm just saying. It's Hawaii. That's the closest that I see to people acting like how the Japanese are right now. And same thing goes for there. Because see, I'll be fair, I'll talk about my own country too. If you live in Hawaii, New York, Chicago, Houston, Los Angeles, San Francisco, no one is making you live there. If you don't like the tourists, you don't like how the prices, bitch, get the fuck out. Nobody's asking you to be there. You can't afford it, leave. The prices are not going to go down for your broke ass. Oh, too bad. Oh, history. Nobody gives a shit. That's life. Also, your anger towards the foreigners, just like in Hawaii, your anger towards the mainlanders coming in is silly. Do you not realize your anger should be reserved for the money-hungry, greedy homeowners? The senators, government officials, whoever, that are allowing this to happen, that's who you should be mad at. Them, for milking the system. For deciding that, hey, let's price these bitches out. We can charge more and have these wealthy rich people move in. Which will both allegedly enhance the environment of the neighborhood, make it safer, and we get a big paycheck. But, making this deal, selling this house, whatever. I'm just saying. But again, people are too stupid. You're mad at the people that are moving in, and you're not mad at the system that allows it. Also, is it their fault that the system allows it? I mean, is it your fault for being a broke ass bitch? I'm just saying, just think about it. Get your pockets up. If you mad that you're being priced out and you can't afford the housing where you are, maybe it's time to consider a different job. Maybe it's time to invent some shit. I don't know. And if you don't want to do that, bitch, then I guess you gotta dip and get out. That's life. Okay. Well, same thing goes for Japan. You're mad that there's so many tourists, I don't know what point did Kyoto and Tokyo not have these things, but to me it's like New York. Like, who lives in New York? There's somebody. And then, you move to New York and you expect there not be any tourists. Didn't you, do your research prior to you coming in? And I say this because the majority of people that live in Tokyo are transplants. Just like how New York and Los Angeles is, the majority of people that live there were not born and raised there. They moved there after becoming an adult for school and or work. My husband is actually included in that category. Most people that you meet in Tokyo were not born and raised there. Now, my husband had a little bit of an entrance childhood. Excuse me. Where he did spend a few years of his childhood in Tokyo for elementary school. And he played baseball there. But, like I said, he's not really from there. He's from Shizuoka. And at least that's closer to Tokyo. But people come from all over little no-name cities you've never heard of in Japan. Because there's no jobs in those other places. But you want to know what? You all are smart. You can make jobs in those places. Just saying. So, I just find it interesting. Like I said, it's like you want people to magically know rules that you're not willing to teach them. And then when people ask questions, ask for rules, they get clowned even by other foreigners. I'm not going to fully blame the Japanese for that. But it's okay. Like, the Japanese don't make books, don't make content teaching real rules. They just talk about how wonderful and nice everything is and talk about how clean everything is. But you don't teach people the actual culture. Then you want them to miraculously know all of the stuff. And then not to mention, let's also just keep it real. A lot of the things that you see are just people taking stuff completely out of proportion. The vast majority of foreigners that you would come across in your day-to-day interactions are going to follow the rules. They will actually know the rules, surprisingly. There's this hyperfixation on the ones who break the rules. Forget all of the many foreigners that you saw. They were standing nicely in line. They were quiet. They ate all their food. Nope, we're going to fixate on the 3 people that we saw that did not do what they were supposed to do. And we're going to write whole think pieces, and we're going to make videos shaming them, and we're going to tweet about it. And it's like, what's the purpose of that? Because I can tell you this right now. If I were to do that for every Japanese person that I saw breaking the same rules, doing the same thing, I'd have at least 1,000 videos per year just on that topic. Because I've seen way more Japanese people do the same stuff that you all bitch about foreigners doing than I have the other way around. And both are wrong, but I'm just saying, there's this huge outrage at anything that a foreigner does. But when Japanese people do it, it's okay, they get a pass. And again, even this whole little Japan first thing, let's stop trying to pretend like it's the same thing. America is talking about the idea that, yeah, we are too heavily reliant on China and other countries. We don't make our own shit. Everything that we have comes from China, which the reality is that's never going to go away. Because the way that most people have been able to become rich is exploiting cheap labor in foreign countries, specifically China and Southeast Asia. And with that said, or South Asia, period. With that said, it's like, okay, if we were to become more dependent, that would mean the businesses here would have to pay higher wages, meaning that the products that we sell would have to go up in price too, which is similar to kind of how Japan is. A lot of things in Japan cost a lot more than we pay for in the US. I think it's mainly because their wage is more, livable in comparison. Livable. So, whatever. It's just so fun to me. It's like, you all are trying to pretend like it's the same thing, and it's really not. Japan does not have some sort of border crisis. They hardly let in any foreigners anyway. Both people that are living in Japan on a foreign visa and people that have permanent residency, whatever, naturalization, whatever, they don't have those crazy numbers like how we do in the US. Not even close. There isn't even nearly as much interest as doing that. So this is not the same thing at all. If Japan wants to do Japan first, how about they start with farming their own food and coming up with resources and crap that they can have on their own? They don't have to get imported from the Philippines, America, etc. That would make more sense. But saying Japan first and then just kicking foreigners out of programs and stopping things for them, I find to be just silly. And again, this is them putting a band-aid, and I won't say band-aid, but like, hey, look over here, like, scapegoat. Instead of acknowledging the problems that Japan has with their own population, their own people, they're finding other things to, like, rile everyone up and get everyone angry about and make you vote for them. When all of those things are minuscule and have nothing to do with your day-to-day life. The majority of you do not do anything that foreigners have any control over, harming, affecting negatively in your life. I can assure you the average Japanese person is not affected by some rich ass person like PewDiePie or something, which I'm not even exaggerating because he does have a place in Tokyo. I never ran into him. But buying some multi-million-dollar home or whatever, because you want to know what? The average Japanese person can't afford that shit. And you want to know what? The average foreigner that's buying property in Japan, for the most part, it seems to be the people who are obsessed with all these little old country bunking, nasty, dirty, fucked up, not even fixer-upper style houses. That's what I keep seeing people share on social media. And the ones that aren't that, let's keep it real. Were the Japanese really desperately trying to buy something like that? Not to my knowledge. Like, when most people in Japan want to get a house, they actually have it built from the ground up. They don't get a property that already exists. So how is it that rich foreigners buying property is hurting them? Also, even if they were to also be building their own as a foreigner, how does that affect you? Because it's taking up more land that you weren't going to use anyway. Because if people aren't having children, let me let you on a little bit of a secret. Most Japanese people do not buy real estate unless they are married and or have children. The average person here is going to rent until they do. With that said, if people are not getting married and they're not having families, sounds to me like there's fake outrage. Because why do you care? Also, let's keep it real. The average home here in Japan is not owned by some slum Chinese lord, like how they're trying to make it seem, like some slum lord that's of Chinese descent. That is not what's going on. That is a rarity. The majority of properties here are owned by big mega Japanese corporations. And those corporations are the ones who you would be renting your home from 9 times out of 10. You would not be dealing directly with the landlord. I have dealt with the landlord directly 2 times in the entirety of time that I've been in Japan. And technically only once. Because the other person, it was a Japanese couple that was running like kind of a hostel style share house. So with that said, why is there this fake outrage over a problem that doesn't really exist? And again, it's because the Japanese do not have the ability to think for themselves. Their brain says, oh, the news is saying Japan first. The news is saying these people are pricing us out. Hey, that's not right. Let's be mad at foreigners. When it's like, no, you should be mad at your government, if anyone. And secondly, ask yourself, is the problem that foreigners are rich, or is the problem that you're not? Because I can assure you, Becky and Jake buying themselves a condo, even at a reasonable price, let's say a condo that costs the U.S. equivalent of $300,000. How is that affecting you when you're not planning to buy a house anyway? How is Becky and Jake being your landlord hurting you? It's not. It's actually kind of helping you all's economy, because now they just gave money to a Japanese person. If you're going to get mad at somebody, be mad at him for doing business with the foreigner. Because you know who's going to be real quiet with this stuff that's going on? The people that are selling these properties. Because they're benefiting from it. The people that own these stores that tourists frequent, they're quiet. You want to know why? Because they want the money. They want to play both sides. They won't defend their foreign customers, but they want to take their money. And so while you're out there protesting and angry and mad, just remember, you're really being played by these businesses. You're really being played by these Japanese businesses and these Japanese homeowners and your Japanese government officials. They are the ones playing you. It is not the fault of foreigners. Your anger is displaced. And again, you can't expect people to know rules that you do not teach. You can't expect people to learn and know a language that you do not allow them to speak and or teach them how to speak. And also, if you care so much, like, let's just be real, the Japanese are the Karens of the traveling industry. They have all these rules. Everything has to be so specific. They get mad so easily. And so it's like, if that's the way that you all feel, wouldn't it make more sense for you all to publish more, have more classes, teach more, have more signage, whatever? No, that would make too much sense. Instead, we're going to play bitchy girlfriend, and instead, we want you to read our mind. We're not going to tell you what to do. We want you to figure it out. Because just think about it. 99% of the rules that we know here in Japan as foreigners came from learning from another foreigner, whether it be watching their video, reading their book, or, just being friends with them in real life. The vast majority of things that I know here is either from me personally experiencing it or a fellow foreigner showing me and telling me, hey, do this. Hey, don't do that. Because they will let you do fucked up, rude, disrespectful things, do stuff the wrong way. Oh, it's okay. Oh, anything is fine. Oh, it doesn't matter. And then they'll turn right back around. Oh, yeah, foreigners are rude. Oh, yeah, foreigners, yeah, they don't know Japanese. And it's like, I asked you and you told me that it was okay. Like, you see what I'm trying to say? They make you a problem. Then they get mad at you for being what they made. Come on. So, and then again, like, the irony in this, you best believe, I said this before, if the real estate, if the US dollar ever tanks, people in Japan will buy out everything in Hawaii. I will tell you that right now. And they'll be very offended, God forbid, that you tell them that, America first, the Japanese to stop buying you all's properties. And if you all were to start picketing and rioting and getting mad at the, rich Japanese for buying up all of the real estate in Hawaii. Very interesting how they don't talk about that flip side. So, and again, two things can be true at the same time. I do agree there are some rules that are too lax, too loose for foreigners. I do agree that foreigners can sometimes be rude, but it's like, sorry, Japan, like, you're not a unicorn, Karen. Like, other countries, including the US, have the same problems that you do. Deal with it. In fact, if you want to solve those problems, how about teach people what to do, what not to do, instead of just expect them to read your mind, know everything. Because most of the little bit that people do know came from people like me, other foreigners. Your people are not doing enough to write books. In fact, that's an opportunity for you all to make money. Write books and teach people how to do these things, what to do, what not to do. Instead, I gotta watch 10 different TikToks from random white girls that spent 3 days in Japan telling me what to do and what not to do. Then you get mad when they got mixed information and telling people wrong advice because they don't know any better. Just saying. You can keep Japan first. I'm not bothered by that. It's just, if you're gonna put Japan first, how about you focus on things that actually matter, like, your fertility rate? How about Japan first? How about Japan first for mental health? How about Japan first for the salaries that they give you all? Because, fine, if you all want to pay foreigners less, okay, well, how about you pay your own people more? How about you give more vacation days? If you want to put Japan first, how about actually focus on things that are helping the country and not things that sound racist and fun on paper? And then also get this. You're going to complain about being called xenophobic, and then you continue to do weird shit like this and make problems that don't exist. I don't believe xenophobic is the word. The real word is prejudice and racist, but for some reason, white people, and some non-black people too, have convinced themselves there's a difference, and there is not. The definition is essentially the same. In fact, it is the same. If you look up the term prejudice and xenophobic, there is no real difference. It essentially roots in ignorance, right? But then again, you could argue the same thing is for racism. Because if you say racism is not rooted in ignorance, you'd be implying that it's not racism, that it's factual, which is not. And with that said, they're all synonyms of each other. You can look it up. The dictionary will tell you that. Racist, prejudice, xenophobic. All the same. And they don't even see themselves as xenophobic. So it's like, I can go on about this forever, you all. It's just sad to me because I feel sorry for people that just want to enjoy their vacation in Japan, but they have to, walk on eggshells, try not to offend. And it's like, you can do all the studying in the world and people will still be mad at you just for existing. You don't have to break a rule. I told you all that I've read crazy posts. Never forget that girl that said that she was just standing in front of some university, not like in front of the door or something like that. I mean, in front of the yard. It's not gated off. Anybody can walk on that sidewalk. And some man shooed her off and told her not to stand there. She literally stood there for just a second. She wasn't blocking the flow of traffic. And she thought she had broken a rule. And thankfully, somebody did tell her, oh, no, that guy was a jerk. I was like, no, call him what he was. He was racist. He was prejudiced. He had you scared and thinking you broken a rule, and you did not. He was just a lunatic. That's the reality. Most people are not going to be like him in Japan. I'm not going to lie to you. But it's like, why are we so afraid to put them back in their place? And again, like the part that gets me the most, like to get like real things back in. Why can't Japan think for themselves? Everything that they do is like copying the US. Everything. And I mean that in both good and bad ways. But in this particular way, I would argue that's more on the bad side. I just find it funny because they want to be seen as their own country. And they talk about this Japan, this Japan, this Japan. But every opportunity that they get, they steal ideas from other countries and try to make it into their own, even when it doesn't make sense. And this is one of those examples of it where it just doesn't make sense. So, whatever, you all. I don't even know where else to go with this. I just found it funny though. Japan first. Like, y'all taking a note out of Donald Trump's playbook at this point. Like, what? Japan first for what? Over rich people buying real estate? Huh? Like, how is that going to change anything? Oh, we're going to make the driving test have 40 more questions. Yeah, we're going to show them Japan first. Okay, I mean, last time I checked, y'all drivers are murdering whole families and whatnot, and people dying and spending their little 5-10 year sentence behind bars because they were too old to be behind the wheel. But yeah, let's focus on the foreigners that are, having accidents. Yeah, let's focus on that. So, and again, not that a reform is not needed, because I'm not gonna lie, I don't think 10 questions is quite exactly enough. But I think the real issue is, how about we teach people how to actually drive instead of having a performative driving exam where you do a bunch of shit that you're never going to actually do in real life, where you have all of these overly strict rules that do not exist in real life. How about we teach real driving skills and ask real driving questions and prep students to actually pass the test instead of just charging exorbitant, ridiculous amounts of money, purposefully failing foreign students? How about we address those issues? But that would make way too much sense, of course, because at the end of the day, the Japanese are money hungry. In fact, it's really funny. Everything they accuse the Chinese and Koreans of, being these money hungry, lying, whatever, kind of sounds like you all are describing yourselves at this point, Japan. Because everything you're doing is about money at this point. You're just trying to find any way that you can to make money. And then the even funnier part is, they're literally insulting the people that give them the most money, which is foreigners. We're the ones spending the big bucks there, not the Japanese. Because imagine how much worse the game rate would be right now if we were not flocking to Japan to take advantage of this weekend. It would be 1,000,000 times worse without Americans coming and spending their money. And at least we actually contribute to their economy when we come over. We're not bringing bags of rice to Hawaii and staying at cheap ass hotels and couch surfing like how you guys are. Just a thought, things that you didn't really think of very much. So, trying to throw that out there. Oops, did I say that? Am I being offensive? Am I not putting Japan first? So, and again, I love Japan, but I just gotta be real. This is ridiculous, y'all. This doesn't even make any sense. What are you all doing to help your own country? How is that gonna help you all? How is that gonna help? So now, when Taro is going up against Jake to get the same $6 million condo, they're going to give it to Taro over Jake. Okay. How is that going to trickle down and help your average day-to-day masa? I don't think it will. It's not. This is what I mean by it is a distraction. And again, it reminds me of the whole affirmative action thing. Asians were so hyper-fixated on black people that they believe got into school solely for being black. Which is very interesting because same people that they're mad at literally paved the way for them to even have the opportunity to become citizens, to have the ability to benefit from any sort of aid and whatever type of crap like that in the first place. To have rights. You're mad at us, though. And then again, funny how they completely ignore the statistic of the Nepos that got in. The people that also didn't have good grades that were white and Asian, but mommy and daddy have connections. They're not concerned about that. They are so concerned about the idea of a black person getting in. Which is also interesting too, because you do realize affirmative action is for all minorities, not just black ones, including women. And that includes white women too. But that would make way too much sense. Again, displaced anger. It's much easier to target black people. Likewise, it's much easier to target foreigners as being your problem. Instead of saying, no, like, our country has problems, let's just point at someone else instead. That's the way Japan always does things. They will never fix their own crap. Every time something's wrong with Japan, they show you another distraction, point that way, make you look, so that you lose focus of what's really wrong with the country, what they really need to change, what they really need to do. The U.S. is not perfect by any means, but this video is not about the U.S. I'm talking about Japan. I love Japan, but I do not agree with everything that it does. Likewise, I love America. I do not agree with everything that it does. I am just tickled by the fact that it's like, you all want to be treated like an individual country. You want to be treated like you're so special, you're so this, you're so that. But then every opportunity that you get, you're just stealing notes out of America's playbook and trying to be like them. But instead reverse it and make it for Japan, kinda, I guess. Which is cool, but then don't get mad when people make suggestions of what you should do then. Because it seems like you are taking those suggestions then. Even though it's not necessarily things that are suggested to you, but rather things that you see. You're playing monkey see, monkey do. And it's really funny because weebs normally get really mad at the idea of Japan doing anything that America does. But then when America does stuff like, when Japan does stuff like this, then the weebs are kind of quiet. They're understanding. So, I give up, you all. This is so crazy. So, leave your 2 cents down below. What do you think about all of this? Do you hear what I'm trying to say? Like, I'm not saying that there's nothing wrong with any of the programs or any of the benefits that exist. I'm just saying these are all distractions. There are bigger fish to fry. This is not of real importance. This is not worthy of you making a decision on who you're going to vote for. And on top of that, it's like, how many of these sales, how many of these, whatever the little things they're complaining about, actually affect you as a Japanese person? We're not talking about the situation like in the U.S. where foreigners just be given free houses and health care and care packages. No. We're not talking about that. We're not talking about foreigners lining up and sleeping on the streets and sleeping inside of the gymnasium that your kid has at their school so now they can't have PE. We're not talking about that. We are talking about people that are able, mostly educated, buying a house. People that are on vacation, but oops, they didn't know you can't wear shorts to the shrine. And see, you all are better than me, because if I got exposed on Twitter and somebody shared a photo of me dressed like a hoe and was talking about how I'm being rude and disrespectful at a shrine, I would immediately out the Taro or Sachiko that told me my outfit was okay. Because I cannot tell you how many times I've seen Japanese people tell people, oh, it's okay, you can wear short shorts, you can wear spaghetti strings, it's fine, just don't show your tits, anything's okay, you're a foreigner. But then when they see you getting dragged in the mud on Twitter, crickets. Or they're in agreement. But it's like, you all were the ones that encouraged them to wear that. So now when another Japanese person calls it out, you don't defend them. You don't say, hey, actually I thought that was okay to wear. I wear that too. Or I've worn that before. They're quiet. They don't defend. They let you sit there, take the blame by yourself. And I mean, look at how confusing that is. It's one thing for a foreigner to steer you wrong, but when you can't even take advice from a Japanese person, isn't that kind of confusing? Because in normal circumstances, you would think a native, not just a local, a native person will be able to give you the best advice. But they oftentimes do not. They will literally mislead you. Then, well, they might not necessarily say anything about you. They will shake their head and laugh in agreement with another Japanese person that's dogging you out for what you said, what you did, whatever. And it's like, okay, even if you thought what that person did was right and that's why you advised them to do that, shouldn't you defend that person because you're the reason why they did that? But that would make too much sense. Accountability and Japanese do not mix together. So, I'm done, you all. I'm done. This is getting crazy. And I hope that Japan turns things around, but I think they're going to end up really regretting what they're doing right now. Because while they mean well for their own people, I guess, they're going to end up scaring a bunch of foreigners away that were considering going to Japan, whether it be for work, to live there, etc. And the weebs are going to think that's wonderful. But give it 10, 20, 30 years. If things continue this way, foreigners, which I've already seen some people making comments like that, they're going to be like, I'd rather spend my money in Thailand where the people actually appreciate me. I'd rather spend my money, in any other Asian country and have a very similar experience without all 50 million rules, where I can have more fun, enjoy myself, still enjoy great taste in food, including great taste in Japanese food. Why would I put myself through all of this crap? For nothing. Spend my hard-earned money to be treated disrespectfully like shit. To be lumped together with people that have nothing to do with me. And interesting, again, because when the Japanese were lumped together with the Chinese, they didn't appreciate that. But then you do the same thing to both tourists and local residents. You do the same thing to all tourists, because according to you, everyone breaks the rules. Everyone's horrible. And it's like, that kind of comes with the territory. Like, you do realize that if everybody were to take the time to learn every language, all the rules for every country, in the history of the world, before they go, you wouldn't really go many places, if anywhere at all, because that's a lot of work to do. And most people are not millionaires that can just sit on their ass and have a tutor come to their home and teach them. They have to work, and tutoring costs big money. So guess what? Unless you're really, really good and just excited about teaching yourself a language, or specifically Japanese, you're not going to know enough of it to actually get by with it when you go on vacation. So with that said, isn't that kind of stupid and unrealistic? Not to mention, how many Japanese people can actually even speak English prior to going on vacation? Also, when they do go on vacation, even when it's not the US, what language do they normally study? English. What language do they normally speak? English. Then you're shocked that when people come to your country, they try to use English there. You do realize it's the language of the world, and it's seriously most people know how to speak it and study it. Because it's kind of understood that even if you're not an American, British, whatever, everybody can kind of understand it. Except for you guys, apparently. But again, it's not just that, they can't speak English. It's the fact they are mad at you for not knowing Japanese. And it's like, huh? How are you mad at people for not knowing your language when you don't know theirs? And you also travel abroad too. And you want to treat foreigners like shit that come to your country, but you want to be welcomed with open arms when you go abroad. And they take great pride in the pride, and how can I put that into pride? They take great pride in all of the wonderful things people say about Japan. They love it when you all talk about how clean and how nice they are and polite, and they just milk the shit out of that. They love hearing that. It gets them hard. And with that said, it's like, okay, so you do realize if you go around treating everybody like shit, you're being rude and talk crap about them, your reputation will change over time, Japan. People will go from saying how polite and wonderful and nice you guys are to calling you guys Karens. Because to be honest, after living there, that's kind of more so how I see you guys, and the polite and whatever type. Yes, a lot of people are, but I feel like I've come across way more Karens than I have the nice, polite people at this point. And it feels like it's getting worse. Because again, the anger is displaced. You're mad that your country screwed you over, and you're taking it out on the foreigners that are just there for vacation. They're just trying to make a life for themselves, helping teach your kid, teaching you, contributing to society by keeping your stores open, by doing research at your labs, at your schools, starting businesses that you enjoy. And you're taking out your anger on them, stupidly. I'm done. Leave your 2 cents down below. What do you think? What has been your experience? Have you seen this Japan First stuff? What do you honestly feel towards it? Do you feel like it's the same? How do you feel it is different? Leave your 2 cents down below. If you agree, disagree. If you have any video ideas, comments, questions you want to ask me, leave it in the comments down below, or you can send me an email directly. As always, don't forget to follow me on my social media. All of my accounts are in the description box down below, as well as my email if you want to ask any questions or pay me for a private consultation. All of that is also in the description box down below, and that's all for now. So thank you so much for listening. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, check out my YouTube channel's homepage, and watch another video. And yeah, that's all for now.